The Anderson family dining room had always intimidated me. Crystal chandeliers worth more than most people's cars, artwork that required insurance policies, and a table that could seat 20 people comfortably. Tonight it seated 12. My parents, my 3 siblings with their spouses, and me. The odd one out as always. "So, Emma," my brother Marcus began, swirling his wine in a way that made him look like he was trying too hard. "Still doing that little tech thing in Seattle?" I smiled politely, cutting into my overpriced steak. "Yes, still in Seattle. My company's doing well." "Company?" my sister Victoria snorted. She'd been drinking since before dinner. "You mean that app thing? What does it even do?" "We develop AI solutions for financial forecasting," I explained, keeping my voice even. I'd learned years ago that showing emotion in this family was like showing blood to sharks. "Sounds complicated," my mother said in that tone that meant she thought it was anything but impressive. Patricia Anderson had perfected the art of the dismissive compliment. "How sweet that you're keeping busy." My father, Richard Anderson, barely looked up from his phone. "Speaking of business, I have an announcement." He set his phone down with the gravity of someone about to declare war. "Anderson Holdings is expanding. We're acquiring 3 new properties in the downtown corridor. Total investment, $40 million. The table erupted in congratulations. Marcus raised his glass. "That's incredible, Dad. You're a genius." "We're so proud," Victoria added, though I noticed she was already checking her own phone. My younger brother, Thomas, leaned forward. "Does this mean promotions?" "I've been running the residential division for 2 years now." "We'll discuss it," Dad said, which was his way of saying yes without committing. "This expansion will cement Anderson Holdings as the premier real estate development firm in the region. Maybe the entire Pacific Northwest." I took a sip of water. The irony was so thick I could taste it. "The financing is tricky though," Dad continued. "We're leveraging significant capital. But the returns will be substantial." Mom patted his hand. "You always make it work, darling." I set down my fork carefully. "If you need additional funding, I could help." The table went silent. Not the thoughtful, considering kind of silence. The shocked, "Did she really just say that" kind of silence. Victoria laughed first. "I'm sorry, what?" "I said I could help with funding," I repeated calmly. "I have some capital available. I could invest $300,000. The silence turned into barely suppressed laughter. "$300,000? Marcus said it like I'd offered to pay for dinner with Monopoly money. "Emma, this is a $40 million deal. Your contribution wouldn't even cover the legal fees." "It's sweet that you want to help," Mom said with that same patronizing tone. "But this is serious business, honey. Not something you understand." My father finally looked directly at me. "Emma, I appreciate the gesture. Really. But we don't need your pocket change." He said pocket change like it physically hurt him. "This is a $40 million business. We work with serious investors. Institutional money. Not." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. "Not what?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "Not hobbyist money from a tech startup that probably operates out of a coffee shop," Victoria finished for him. She'd never forgiven me for skipping her destination wedding to close a crucial deal. "No offense, Emma, but you're playing in the kiddie pool. We're in the ocean." Thomas tried to be diplomatic. "What Victoria means is that our funding structure is complex. We have established relationships with venture capital firms, private equity groups, institutional investors. It's not really something where individual contributions make sense. Unless those individual contributions are 8 or 9 figures," Marcus added with a smirk. "You got $100 million lying around, Emma?" More laughter. My sister-in-law, Jennifer, actually wiped tears from her eyes. I pulled out my phone. "Oh, are we boring you?" Victoria snapped. "Is your little app sending you notifications?" "Just need to send a quick message," I said, typing carefully. "Please excuse me." The message was simple. "David, withdraw all backing from Anderson Holdings effective immediately. Authorization code, Emma 7734. Execute after their 7 p.m. board meeting begins." I hit send and set my phone face down on the table. "As I was saying," Dad continued, clearly annoyed by my phone usage, "this expansion represents the culmination of 30 years of building this business. 30 years of relationships, reputation, and results. It's not something you can just buy into with a check. Even a $300,000 check, Mom added as if that clinched it. I understand, I said quietly. Do you though? Victoria leaned forward. Because you seem to think that whatever you're doing in Seattle puts you on our level. It doesn't. You make apps. We build empires. Victoria, Thomas said weakly. No, let me finish. Victoria was on a roll now, emboldened by wine and the approval she saw in our parents' eyes. Emma has always been like this. Always trying to insert herself where she doesn't belong. Remember when she wanted to join the company after college? Thank God Dad said no. I did remember. I'd graduated top of my class from Wharton with a degree in finance. My father had told me that Anderson Holdings was a family business, and that I needed to find my own way. Marcus, who'd barely graduated from a state school, had been given a VP position immediately. I found my own way, I said. Yes, you did, Mom said using her let's move on voice. And we're happy for you. But this conversation is about serious capital investment, and frankly, it's above your pay grade. My phone buzzed. I glanced at it. A text from David Chin, my investment manager. Confirmed. Withdrawing $180 million from Anderson Holdings. Board meeting starts in 8 minutes. They don't know yet. I took another sip of water. The best part, Dad was saying, is that our primary backer just increased their commitment. Another $50 million available if we need it. When you have the reputation we've built, money finds you. Who's the primary backer? Jennifer asked. Dad smiled mysteriously. Confidential. But they're a major player. Very sophisticated operation. They've been with us for 5 years now, and they keep increasing their position because they see our value. 5 years. That was exactly when I'd started investing in Anderson Holdings through shell companies and investment firms. They had no idea. Must be nice to have that kind of support, I said. It is, Dad agreed. That's what happens when you operate at a certain level. You attract serious money. My phone buzzed again. David, board meeting starting. Your father just walked in. This is going to be interesting. I glanced at my watch. 7:02 p.m. Is something wrong? Mom asked, noticing my attention to the time. No, nothing at all. Dad's phone rang. He glanced at it, frowned, and declined the call. Where were we? The expansion, Marcus prompted. Dad's phone rang again. Same number. He declined it again, more irritated now. Maybe you should get that, I suggested. It's fine. They'll leave a message. He started to speak again, but his phone immediately rang a third time. For God's sake. He answered it. This better be important, I'm at a family dinner. We all watched as his face changed. The irritation melted into confusion, then shock, then something approaching panic. What do you mean withdrawn? His voice rose. No, there must be a mistake. Check again. Silence as he listened. All of it? That's impossible. Who authorized this? More silence. His face was going red. What do you mean effective immediately? We have contracts, agreements. Marcus and Thomas exchanged worried glances. Victoria set down her wine glass. I need to call you back, Dad said, his voice tight. He hung up and immediately started dialing another number. Richard. Mom's voice was sharp. What's going on? He held up a hand, phone to his ear. Bill, it's Richard Anderson. I just got a call that seems, yes, I'll hold. He put his hand over the phone. There's some kind of issue with our primary funding source. I'm sure it's just a miscommunication. But his face said he wasn't sure at all. Another phone call. Then another. With each one, Dad's expression grew darker. Marcus's phone started ringing too, then Thomas's. The elegant dinner party was dissolving into chaos. I don't understand, Dad was saying to someone. We had a 5-year commitment. Yes, I understand there are clauses, but a major capital restructuring? By who? I ate my steak. It had gone slightly cold, but it was still good. Emma, Mom said suddenly. This is serious. Your father is dealing with a crisis. I can see that, I replied. Dad hung up and stared at his phone like it had betrayed him. Our primary investor just withdrew $180 million from our operations. The table gasped. Victoria actually grabbed Marcus's arm. $180 million? Thomas's voice cracked. That's everything. That's the expansion, the current properties, the operational capital. I'm aware, Dad snapped. Then his phone rang again. It's the board. I need to take this. He stood up and walked to his study, his confident stride replaced with something uncertain. Marcus followed him. Then Thomas. Mom sat frozen, her perfect composure cracking. This can't be happening. Who would do this? Jennifer asked. Who could do this? I took another bite of steak. Aren't you concerned? Victoria demanded. This is our family business. Is it? I asked mildly. I was told quite clearly tonight that it's not my business. That I don't understand. That I'm playing in the kiddie pool. This isn't the time for petty, Victoria started, but Mom cut her off. Emma. Mom's voice was different now. Do you know something about this? I dabbed my mouth with my napkin. What would I know? I just make apps, remember? I operate out of a coffee shop. Voices rose from the study. We could hear Dad shouting, though we couldn't make out the words. My phone buzzed. David, Anderson Holdings is in full crisis mode. They're trying to find alternative funding, but everyone's calling me asking what I know. The word is spreading fast. Stock price is going to tank when this goes public tomorrow. I typed back, let me know if they figure it out. David, they won't. I buried the ownership structure under 17 layers of shell companies and investment firms. The only name attached is Pacific Northwest Ventures LLC. Even their forensic accountants will take weeks to trace it. Dad emerged from his study followed by Marcus and Thomas. All three looked like they'd aged a decade. We need to find out who Pacific Northwest Ventures is, Dad said without preamble. They're the ones who withdrew the funding. Does anyone recognize that name? Heads shook around the table. Marcus, get our lawyers on this. Thomas, call every investor contact we have. Someone must know who's behind this. Dad ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I'd never seen from him. He was always so controlled. Jennifer, you worked in venture capital before. Do you know this firm? Pacific Northwest Ventures? Jennifer pulled out her phone, typing quickly. I can't find anything. No website, no public filings, no portfolio companies listed anywhere. It's a ghost. Ghosts don't have $180 million, Victoria snapped. I cleared my throat. Actually, Pacific Northwest Ventures has considerably more than that. Everyone turned to look at me. What did you say? Dad's voice was very quiet. Pacific Northwest Ventures. It's one of the largest private investment firms in the region. They focus on real estate, technology, and strategic acquisitions. Total assets under management are approximately $800 million. I paused. Give or take. How do you know this? Marcus demanded. I read, I said simply. It's a fairly well-known firm in investment circles. I've never heard of it, Dad said. That's because they're private and very selective about their public profile. I took a sip of water. They prefer to work through intermediaries and subsidiary companies. Very sophisticated operation. The way I said sophisticated made Victoria's eyes narrow. If you know so much about them, Thomas said slowly, do you know why they'd pull funding from us? I couldn't possibly speculate, I replied. I'm sure they have their reasons. Major capital restructuring decisions like that don't happen randomly. Dad's phone rang again. He looked at it and his face went white. It's Lawrence Hendricks. The Lawrence Hendricks? Mom's voice was faint. From Hendricks Capital? Dad answered, putting it on speaker. Lawrence, thank you for calling back so quickly. Richard. The voice that came through the speaker was measured and professional. I heard about your situation. I'm calling as a courtesy to let you know that Hendricks Capital won't be able to provide bridge financing at this time. But Lawrence, we've worked together for 15 years. And I value that relationship. Which is why I'm being direct with you. Whatever happened with Pacific Northwest Ventures has created significant risk concerns. Until you resolve your relationship with them, no serious investment firm is going to touch Anderson Holdings. Our relationship? We don't have a relationship with them beyond standard investment terms. This is clearly some kind of hostile action. Is it? Lawrence's voice was sharp. Richard, Pacific Northwest Ventures doesn't do hostile anything. They're one of the most respected private investment operations in 3 states. If they pulled funding, there was a reason. And until I know what that reason is, I have to protect my investors. Silence around the table. You could hear the chandelier crystals tinkling in the ventilation draft. You're saying Pacific Northwest Ventures has that much influence? Dad's voice was strained. Richard, they could buy out Hendricks Capital tomorrow if they wanted to. They have connections at every major bank, every venture capital firm, every private equity group on the West Coast. Crossing them is career suicide. Pause. What did you do? I didn't do anything. Then you better figure out what happened because as of right now your company is untouchable. The line went dead. Dad stood there holding his phone like it was a live grenade. This is insane, Victoria said. One firm can't have that much power. Marcus's phone buzzed. Then Thomas's. They both looked at their screens and went pale. What? Mom demanded. It's spreading, Marcus said weakly. I just got 3 emails from investor contacts. They're all asking what happened with Pacific Northwest Ventures. They're all saying they need to reassess their position with us. Same here, Thomas added. One of them said, and I quote, I didn't know you had PNV backing. Why would you jeopardize that relationship? I checked my own phone. David had sent me a message with a simple emoji. Smiling face with sunglasses. Dad slowly sat down. Someone find out everything about Pacific Northwest Ventures. Everything. Who runs it, what they invest in, who their other portfolio companies are. There has to be a way to fix this. I can help with that, I said. Everyone looked at me again. You can. Dad's voice had something in it I'd never heard before. Hope maybe. Or desperation. I know quite a bit about Pacific Northwest Ventures, I confirmed. I've followed their operations for years. Studied their investment patterns, their decision-making processes, their portfolio management strategies. Why would you study them? Victoria asked suspiciously. Because they're brilliant, I said simply. They started 5 years ago with seed capital of about $50 million. Through strategic investments and careful portfolio management, they've grown to over $800 million in assets. They focus on undervalued properties, emerging technology companies and strategic real estate acquisitions. Their return rate is 43% annually. I had everyone's complete attention now. They've invested in 27 different companies and properties across Washington, Oregon, and Northern California, I continued. Real estate development, tech startups, manufacturing facilities, commercial properties. Their portfolio includes the Riverside Complex downtown, the Morrison Building, and approximately 30% of the startup companies in the Seattle metro area. How do you know all this? Mom asked. Research, I said. It's what I do. Financial analysis, market research, investment pattern recognition. It's kind of my thing. Dad leaned forward. Do you know how to contact them? I might be able to facilitate an introduction, I said carefully. But I should warn you they're very selective about who they work with. They have certain standards. Standards. Marcus bristled. Anderson Holdings is a $40 million company with a 30-year track record. Was a $40 million company, I corrected gently. Without that $180 million in backing, your actual operational value is closer to $15 million. And most of that is leveraged. The silence was deafening. How do you know our operational numbers? Dad's voice was dangerous now. Public filings, property records, market analysis, I replied. It's not secret information. Anyone who knows where to look can find it. Thomas was typing frantically on his laptop. She's right. Without the PNV backing, we're in serious trouble. The expansion deal requires proof of capital by next week. If we can't show it, we lose the down payment. That's $8 million. We'll find other investors, Dad said, but he didn't sound confident. In a week. Victoria's voice was climbing. After word gets out that Pacific Northwest Ventures dropped us? Lawrence was right, we're toxic now. My phone rang. I glanced at it. Excuse me, I need to take this. It's my investment manager. I stood and walked to the window, turning my back to the table but speaking loud enough for them to hear. Hi, David. Yes, I saw the news. No, I don't think they've figured it out yet. What? Another withdrawal? Which property? Oh, the Morrison Building. Yes, that makes sense. That's entirely controlled by PNV, isn't it? They're trying to trace the ownership? Tell legal to make it as complicated as possible. Of course. Yes, I'll be back in Seattle tomorrow. We can meet then. I hung up and turned back to the table. Everyone was staring at me. Sorry about that, I said, returning to my seat. Where were we? Who was that? Dad asked. My investment manager. David Chen. He handles my portfolio. Your portfolio, Marcus repeated slowly. Yes. I do have investments, you know. Just because I run a tech company doesn't mean I don't diversify. I smiled. It's investment 101. Never put all your eggs in one basket. Dad's phone buzzed. He looked at it and his face changed again. It's a text from Bill at the bank. He says someone from Pacific Northwest Ventures legal team just contacted him asking about our account status and creditworthiness. That's unusual, I commented. Investment firms don't usually make direct contact with banks after a withdrawal. Unless what? Mom demanded. Unless they're considering additional action. Maybe they're not just withdrawing funding. Maybe they're positioning for something else. Like what? Thomas asked. I shrugged. Takeover? A buyout? Hard to say without knowing their strategy. Victoria's eyes were sharp on me now. Too sharp. You know a lot about how they operate. I told you I've studied them. Nobody studies an investment firm that carefully unless they have a reason, Victoria pressed. What's your reason, Emma? I met her gaze calmly. Professional curiosity. They're good at what they do. I like learning from the best. Dad's phone rang again. He answered without checking the caller. Yes. What? You can't be serious. No, I understand, but... Fine. Thank you for letting me know. He hung up and looked at Mom. The Morrison Building. What about it? They're exercising their majority control. Effective immediately, Anderson Holdings is no longer managing the property. Pacific Northwest Ventures is taking direct control. They can't do that, Marcus said. They can, I said. If they hold majority ownership. Which they do. 51%, I believe. Every head swiveled toward me. How could you possibly know that? Dad's voice was barely above a whisper. It's in the property records. Public information. I paused. Actually, Pacific Northwest Ventures holds majority or significant minority positions in most of your major properties. The Morrison Building, the Riverside Complex, the downtown parking structures, the Harborview Apartments. They're quite strategically positioned in your portfolio. That's impossible, Mom said. We'd know if one firm had that much control. Would you? I asked. Do you personally review every investment document? Every shareholder agreement? Every ownership structure? Thomas was typing again, his face growing increasingly alarmed. Emma's right. I'm looking at the ownership records now. PNV shows up in almost every major property we manage. How did we not notice this? Because they came in through different subsidiary companies at different times, I explained. That's their strategy. They don't announce themselves. They quietly accumulate strategic positions. Then when they have sufficient control, they act. This is insane, Victoria said. It's like they planned this. They probably did, I agreed. Pacific Northwest Ventures doesn't do anything accidentally. Every investment is strategic. Every acquisition is calculated. They're playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. Dad was staring at me now with an expression I couldn't quite read. Emma, how do you really know all this? I told you. No. His voice was firm. Nobody knows this level of detail about a private investment firm without direct access. The ownership percentages, the portfolio strategy, the legal maneuvering. You're not guessing. You know. The table was silent. Outside I could hear a car drive by. Inside, the chandelier crystals tinkled. I took a breath. You want to know about Pacific Northwest Ventures? Yes. All right. I pulled out my phone and opened my email. I forwarded a message to Dad's email address. Check your phone. He did. His face went from confusion to shock to something I'd never seen before. Understanding maybe. Or horror. What is it? Mom grabbed his phone. She looked at the screen. Her hand went to her mouth. Marcus leaned over to look. His eyes went wide. No. No way. The email was simple. It was from David Chen, my investment manager. The subject line read, Pacific Northwest Ventures LLC Ownership Structure and Portfolio Summary. The body of the email listed everything. Every property, every investment, every strategic acquisition. The Morrison Building. The Riverside Complex. The Harborview Apartments. 15 other properties and 7 tech companies. At the bottom in bold, primary shareholder and CO, Emma Anderson. Total assets under management, $847 million. You, Dad whispered. You're Pacific Northwest Ventures. I am Pacific Northwest Ventures, I confirmed. Victoria's wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the table. Nobody moved to clean it up. That's impossible, Marcus said. You make apps. I do make apps, I agreed. My company, Anderson Tech Solutions, generates about $30 million in annual revenue. But that's not where most of my money comes from. Then where? Thomas's voice was faint. Investments. I took my initial success from my first app and invested it. Smart investments. Strategic investments. I started with real estate because I learned from the best. I nodded at Dad. You taught me everything you know even if you didn't mean to. I watched. I learned. I did what you did, but I did it better. $800 million, Mom said numbly. You have $800 million. $847 million, but who's counting? I took another sip of water. And yes, $180 million of that was invested in Anderson Holdings. I've been your primary backer for 5 years. Dad's face was ashen. Why? Because I believed in the company. Because despite everything it's good at what it does. And because I thought maybe, eventually, you'd see me as something other than the family disappointment who makes apps. But you withdrew, Thomas said. You pulled all the funding. I did. Why? Dad asked again. I looked around the table at my family. My successful, confident, dismissive family. Because you told me my $300,000 was pocket change, I said simply. Because you laughed at my offer to help. Because after 5 years of secretly funding your entire operation, of making sure you had the capital to expand and thrive, you told me I was playing in the kiddie pool while you were in the ocean. The silence stretched. So I decided to show you what the ocean actually looks like, I continued. Without my backing, Anderson Holdings is a $15 million company with $8 million in debt and no way to complete your expansion. The Morrison Building? I own 51%. Always have. The Riverside Complex? 63%. Harborview? 47%. Every major property you manage I have controlling or significant interest. Why did you hide it? Mom asked. Because I wanted to see if you'd ever treat me like I belonged. If you'd ever see me as capable, as intelligent, as worthy of respect. I smiled sadly. You didn't. Even tonight when I offered to help you mocked me. So now you know. Marcus found his voice. What happens now? That depends, I said. On you. On us. Victoria's voice was sharp, but there was fear in it now. On whether you want me to stay invested or not. I looked at Dad. You said Anderson Holdings is a family business. You were right. And I'm family whether you like it or not. So here's my offer. I'll restore the funding. All $180 million. I'll even increase my investment to $200 million to help with the expansion. Hope flickered across Dad's face. But, I continued, things change. I'm not a silent partner anymore. I want a seat on the board. I want full transparency on all investments and decisions. And I want respect. Real respect, not patronizing comments about my little tech thing. And if we refuse? Victoria asked. Then I pull all my investments from every property and company I'm involved with that has any connection to Anderson Holdings. I have controlling interest in most of your portfolio. I could dismantle your entire operation in a week. I kept my voice calm. Or you could accept that your daughter isn't playing in the kiddie pool. She built the ocean you're drowning in. Dad stared at me for a long moment. Then slowly he stood up and walked around the table. He stopped in front of me. I'm sorry, he said. And for the first time in my life he sounded like he meant it. For what, specifically? I asked. For underestimating you. For dismissing you. For not seeing. He trailed off. For not seeing any of it. Mom stood too. Emma, we had no idea. You had no idea because you never asked, I said. You assumed. You decided who I was without ever really looking. Thomas cleared his throat. For what it's worth, I think a seat on the board is more than fair. I vote yes. Same, Marcus said quietly. He looked shaken. I'm sorry, Emma. For all of it. Victoria was the last to speak. You really control $800 million? Give or take. She laughed, but it wasn't mocking this time. It was almost admiring. You're terrifying. Thank you, I said. Dad extended his hand. Partners. I looked at his hand for a moment, then took it. Partners. But I want that in writing. Official board position, voting rights, full disclosure. Done. My phone buzzed. David, should I restore the funding? I typed back, yes. All of it. Plus an additional $20 million. Time to show them what serious money looks like. I looked around the table at my family's faces. Shock, respect, fear, admiration, all mixed together. One more thing, I said. That $300,000 I offered? I'm still putting that in. Consider it a personal investment separate from Pacific Northwest Ventures. Because family supports family, even when family doesn't deserve it. Emma, Mom said, tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry. I know, I said. And I accept your apology. But this can't happen again. I'm not the family member you tolerate at dinner parties. I'm the person who's been keeping this company afloat for 5 years. Remember that. Dad nodded slowly. We will. I promise. My phone rang. I glanced at it. It's my manager. I need to take this. I answered. David? Yes, authorize the funding restoration. All properties full capital reinstatement. No, increase it to $200 million total. Yes, I'm sure. Also, prepare the paperwork for my board position at Anderson Holdings. Everything official. Perfect. See you Monday. I hung up and looked at my family. You'll have your funding back by tomorrow morning. The board will receive my appointment paperwork on Monday. The expansion can proceed as planned. Thank you, Dad said. Don't thank me, I replied. This is business. I'm an investor protecting my investment. The fact that you're my family is secondary. I stood up. Now if you'll excuse me, I have an early flight back to Seattle. I have actual business to attend to. Emma, wait, Mom called as I headed for the door. Can we talk more about this? About everything? I paused at the doorway. Sure. Call my office and schedule an appointment. My assistant will find time in my calendar. The shock on their faces was almost worth the 5 years of secret investment. Almost. As I drove away from the Anderson family mansion, my phone buzzed with messages from David. The funding was being restored. The lawyers were drawing up my board position papers. Stock prices would stabilize by morning. I'd spent 5 years building an empire in secret, funding my family's business while they dismissed me as someone who made apps. Tonight I'd shown them the truth. Not with anger, not with gloating, but with the simple, devastating power of facts and numbers. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting mad. It's proving them wrong with $800 million and a smile. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from Dad. I really am proud of you. I should have said that years ago. I'm sorry it took this for me to see what you'd become. I smiled and texted back. See you at the board meeting, Dad. The kiddie pool, it turned out, was just where I'd been practicing before I built the ocean. And now they were all swimming in it whether they liked it or not. I'd offered them $300,000 and they'd laughed. Now they owed me $200 million and they'd never see me the same way again. Perfect.